Hello everybody, I'm Ocean Robin. So excited that in about 14 minutes we're going to begin our broadcast of episode 6 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Today our focus is Diabesity Unmasked, the truth about weight loss, diabetes, and food freedom. What's the real reason that we see such a direct connection between obesity and type 2 diabetes? Why is it so hard to lose weight and so easy to gain it? In this episode, we're going to explore the real causes of obesity and type 2 diabetes and the real reasons that traditional diets almost always fail. We'll dive into the newest drugs being used for weight loss and diabetes management and whether or not they're safe or worth the cost. You'll learn what the most recent studies say about what actually works for effective and sustained weight control, so you can enjoy more balanced blood sugar and your unique right-sized body. If you just joined us, we'll be starting in about 13 minutes. I'm Ocean Robbins, your host, and I am welcoming you. As we move through the day, please post and share in the comment section on the broadcast page. You can tell us your top takeaways, your aha moments, what this all means to you, to your family, to your life. Refresh those comments regularly using the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted and so you can engage with others. Lori said, I was so sick I completely missed the April launch. I'm so thankful for the relaunch and happy that I bought access for future viewing. Thank you, Ocean, and thanks to your dad for all the work you do. I'm especially grateful for your email about Susan Pierce Thompson that you sent back in the fall of 2017. Being off flour and sugar and being part of the Bright Line Eating community has been a huge benefit to my life. Thank you for thinking of those of us with food addiction issues. Again, thanks so much. Lori, thank you for sharing your story. I'm so glad that you tuned into the Bright Line Eating community back in 2017 and that it has meant so much to you. For those who don't know, you'll see a lot about Susan Pierce Thompson in today's episode. She is one of the most brilliant humans I know and one of my dearest friends, and she has essentially cracked the code on understanding how the brain responds to food and how we can break free from food addiction. And so one of the critical pieces, as Lori mentioned here, was getting off of sugar and flour. You'll learn more about that today. Lori, I thank you so much for sharing, and I'm so glad you're part of this movement with us. And we'll look forward to seeing you for many more summits and healthy years to come. Deborah said, this is the second time for me for this summit. It's amazing how much new information I'm getting. I've lost 12 pounds since the first summit aired, and wow, I can get so much more food. I'm no longer hungry, and sugar cravings are almost gone. I have a lot less atrial fibrillation. This was so good. Thank you for doing this. So very grateful. Deborah, yay, wonderful news. Congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that. And yeah, folks, we're going to learn a lot today about your right-sized body and how you can make food the foundation of your health while also making conscious choices about food. So many of us are not really the author of our food lives. We think we are. We feel guilty and ashamed when we make choices that we don't think are in our own best interests, but we still feel like we are inexorably pulled by addictions and, cravings that have their way with us. And today you're going to learn more about how that works and why that happens and how you can break free so that you don't find yourself on the wrong end of empty bags of cookies and chips. So you don't have that, oh my God, why did I do that to myself again feeling. No, you can break free so that you make conscious choices that truly align with your values and your integrity and your self-love and what you really want for your life. Marty said, thank you, Ocean and John. You present as authentically caring hearts. Makes me emotional to know there are people like you in this world. Well, Marty, thank you so much for that. And, they say that sometimes we see in others what's in us. So if you're feeling our heart, that means you must have a big heart too. And there's a lot of big hearts here. There's a lot of big hearts in this summit. A lot of people who care care enough to think outside the box, care enough to practice love for ourselves and our bodies, even in a toxic food culture, care enough to care about the well-being of others and the community, our families, our loved ones, our planet. And as we're learning as we go through this summit, what we eat can be a way to put that caring and that love into action in powerful and courageous ways that send out ripples through our entire lives and through the entire world. Suzanne said, aloha, love, love, love how much I am learning. I study all the time, but still learn so much from you. Awesome, Suzanne. Well, we're so grateful for all the experts in this summit who have put so many decades of work and learning and study and research and courage and tenacity into understanding all that we're sharing here. We are so blessed by their work, aren't we? And by the opportunity to bring it forward. If you just joined us, we'll be starting episode 6 in the Food Revolution Summit docuseries in about 8 minutes. I'm Ocean Robbins, sharing some welcoming words. Beth said, I want to thank you and your father for this program. It was FRN that put my husband and I on a path that has totally changed our health and our lives. In the last few years, we have looked to move into a retirement community, but have found that most of the continuing care retirement communities, or CCRCs, include a required eating plan that doesn't match the lifestyle that has so enhanced our lives. I'm pleased to report that we have found our home where they not only support our lifestyle, but proactively encourage it. Asbury Methodist Village in Gaithersburg, Maryland, allows us to choose whether or not to use their dining program and includes more appropriate foods in the meals they offer. What's most exciting is that they have an active Blue Zones project on campus. In this program, they teach all the principles you're teaching, and they implement activities and programs to encourage us to adopt these principles, including diet, activity, life purpose, and connection. We would not have sought our and found this answer for our lives without all we've learned from FRN over the years. We want to encourage others to find solutions that work for them, and to encourage CCRCs to promote a lifestyle that will give their residents the healthiest life possible. I know some folks are going to be asking, what was the name of that village they mentioned? So again, it was the Asbury Methodist Village in Gaithersburg, Maryland, just in case anybody is wondering. And Beth, thanks so much for sharing that story and how awesome that there's a Blue Zone project getting worked into this community. People all over the world are waking up, folks. And there's all kinds of nodes of possibility popping up as people are discovering the power of food to change our lives and saying, oh my gosh, let's do something in our community, in our ecosystem, in our region. And so whether you want to be an instigator or a catalyst, or you want to find other people who are catalysts, we can all be a part of this movement in our own unique ways and reap the benefits. Makini said, can extensive dental bone loss be reversed and stopped with a holistic plant-based diet? Makini, thank you for asking. So a whole foods plant-based diet can support overall health, and it can help prevent further bone loss. But extensive dental bone loss typically can't be fully reversed through diet alone. Dental bone loss is often due to factors like gum disease, aging, or poor oral hygiene. But a nutrient-rich plant-based diet that has lots of calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K can support bone health and could slow down further bone loss. Foods like leafy greens, almonds, and fortified plant milks are great sources for these nutrients. Maintaining good oral hygiene and consulting a dental professional are also key, of course, for managing and stopping bone loss. And as you know, good oral hygiene is one of the most important factors in healthy gums and teeth. So you want to sorry if this sounds over familiar, but brush at least twice a day, floss every day, visit a dentist at least annually, and many people find that a water pick can be really helpful for improving gum health. Other lifestyle factors that affect dental health include smoking, you don't want to do it, stress, you want to dial it down, and of course we talk about diet, you also want to limit alcohol, sugar, and acidic foods, which can help minimize cavities and prevent enamel erosion. You don't necessarily have to avoid all such foods completely, but it does help to be mindful. And you may want to focus on reducing mouth breathing at night if you can, steering clear of soft drinks and acidic beverages, and swishing your mouth with water after you eat so your mouth is clean during the day. And remember this, saliva is good for your teeth, so licking them periodically instead of letting them dry out could be helpful too. So those are some good dental health things for everybody, including plant-based eaters. Barbara said, thank you for the interview with Dr. Batiste. What an amazing man with a powerful message. Oh my gosh. Barbara, I love that you called that out, because Dr. Columbus Batiste is an amazing man. He has a new book out, by the way, called Selfish, The Cure for a Broken Heart. And it's a wonderful book. And Dr. Batiste is a wonderful man, cardiologist who is really embracing the totality of lifestyle medicine in his practice and message. And for those who don't know, every day of this summit, there are 3 more extended interviews that are available after we finish the morning broadcast. They're available throughout the replay period. And these are incredible interviews with incredible people. Of course, if you get the empowerment package, you have them all for life, because I know it's a lot to absorb all at once in just 8 days. But the empowerment package gives you all of them, plus more that we aren't able to air during the summit. So you get 45 in total. And if you want to go deep with any of these brilliant experts, or listen podcast style to the audio, which you can do while you're going for a jog or working in the garden or driving or doing the dishes or anything else, that can be an amazing way to really let yourself be saturated in this life-giving and health-boosting wisdom. Becky said, last night I made the arugula blackberry salad with candied walnuts and vegan feta. It was really good. My husband liked it too. I'm happy to have the support of him and this change I am trying to make. Becky, awesome. And thanks for calling out the recipes. Every day of this summit, there are 3 more recipes of the day. We keep adding more. They're so delicious and so amazing. They come from FRN's lead dietitian and recipe developer, Nicole Andrea Russert. And so glad you're enjoying them. And by the way, folks, if you didn't already know, Nicole and I have a new book coming out next month, Powered by Plants, nutrient-loaded 30-minute meals to help you thrive. It's absolutely gorgeous. It is a recipe book, and it also contains some wisdom on nutrients and how you can maximize your nutrient intake, including the specifically most challenging nutrients to get on a plant-based diet with healthy food. And then the recipes back it up and make it super delicious. JC Sanchez said, hi, Ocean. I just wanted to say thank you to you and your dad for bringing all this life-saving information for free to all of us who are struggling with illnesses that put your life on hold. It's been 4 months since my healing journey with a whole food plant-based diet began, and thanks be to God as the days passed and I see myself getting better and better. JC, thank you for sharing that, and we're sending you so much love and strength and fortitude in your healing journey. Gail said, what about AFib? I was diagnosed with it in 2022. I found nothing about diet helping prevent this disease or keeping it from recurring. Once diagnosed, I've been vegan for 22 years, but until recently I ate too many processed foods I thought were healthy. I've always exercised a lot. I thought that AFib onset in me was a combination of genetics and long-term stressors. Now I'm almost exclusively whole foods plant-based. Is there anything more I can do diet-wise for AFib? Is it truly not curable? Well, Gail, thank you for raising this, and I'm sorry you're struggling with atrial fibrillation. There are many different kinds and causes of AFib, and many people adopt a whole foods plant-based diet and do experience considerable benefit. But there are some types that appear to be more mechanical in nature. In these instances, sometimes an ablation or other procedure might be helpful. Of course, consult with your doctor about the specifics. All right, folks, it looks like it is about time for us to move into episode 6. Again, as we move through the day, please continue to post and engage in the comments section on the broadcast page, letting us know what you think, what this all means in your life, how it lands for you. And make sure you use the button provided there to see the most recent ones that have been submitted. All right, here we go.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution is impactful.
The food revolution is transformative.
Compassion.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution is life.
The future of medicine.
Long overdue.
It's time.
It's time.
It is time for a food revolution.
The food revolution is our future.
It's power to change the world.
And it's available for everyone.
It's time for a food revolution.
It's time for a food revolution.
Join the food revolution.
Join the food revolution.
Now is the time.
Throughout most of human history, we existed in survival mode, in a context of unpredictable scarcity. So we've been programmed with the powerful drive to eat as much as we can when we can, and to store any calories that we don't need at the moment on our bodies for later use.
Food availability could never be taken for granted. And those who stored the most fat for the future were more able to survive subsequent food shortages. So generation after generation, millennia after millennia, the evolutionary advantage went to those who stored the most body fat.
And that was functional when food scarcity was the dominant reality, at least during some months of the year. But when this genetic programming meets the modern food supply, well, here's what you get. Today, the average American weighs 30 pounds more than he or she did in 1960. More than half of today's children are expected to be obese by age 35. And this problem is increasing worldwide and getting worse every year.
At the same time, it is important to recognize every single one of us is unique. Each body tells its own story of life and experience. Every person, regardless of their size or shape, is inherently beautiful and deserving of love and respect.
So true. But our society tends to morally judge people who are obese. They're called all sorts of disrespectful names and are sometimes even treated with disdain and contempt. This is cruel, and it's pointless, and it needs to stop.
Yes, it does. Now, in this episode, we're going to delve into the intricate and often misunderstood connection between excess weight and health outcomes. And we're going to look at the relationship between obesity and type 2 diabetes. This connection is so profound that it's birthed a new term, diabesity. Diabesity, the intertwining of diabetes and obesity, has become a global epidemic. It's rapidly growing, and it's on track to become the most costly chronic disease in the world.
So join us as we navigate these challenging waters, seeking solutions that both honor human dignity and body diversity, and that support health that's rooted in compassion, self-respect, and wisdom. I'm John Robbins.
And I'm Ocean Robbins, and you're watching the 2024 Food Revolution Summit.
Currently, over 70% of the US population is considered overweight or obese, which is really remarkable. If you think about it, that means being at a healthy weight puts people in the minority in the US population.
You know, some of the things that we have found is that having even some extra weight is fine for some people. And that's actually been health promoting for some people. But if your weight is leading to these chronic health conditions, which we know at certain weights it certainly can, especially if it's those things that we are consuming and those lack of lifestyle factors, we aren't moving our bodies, we aren't keeping our stress at bay, we aren't sleeping well, then that is going to promote a side of obesity that's going to not be healthful for us.
We all know that carrying excess weight is bad for our health. And at the same time, I think that in order to have a healthy and constructive conversation about body weight, we need to start with compassion and empathy. Because fat shaming and weight stigma inflict deep psychological harm and obstruct the pathway to healthy living. And they can evoke feelings of defensiveness that make it harder for any of us to actually make the choices that serve the lives we want to live.
When we add to the shame of people who are struggling with excess weight, we make it harder for them and also for ourselves to make the best choices. And when it comes to obesity, sometimes even healthcare providers are responsible for harmful impacts on their patients.
There was some powerful research decades ago, actually, that surveyed healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, clinicians, healthcare workers, anonymously, and asked them how they thought and felt about people living with obesity. And over 90% of them agreed with statements like, I think they're dumb and I think they're lazy. I think they are slovenly and they don't care about their well-being. And so living with excess weight means you don't get good health care. It means you're not trusted when you report your symptoms. With extreme morbid obesity, you're stared at, you're teased, and a powerful isolation can develop. Not everybody experiences that. Some people who have a naturally winning personality, are able to develop friends and have a social life, but it's like sandbags around your ankles, having many, many friends who have lived and are still living with extreme morbid obesity. I know that, travel and mobility are a huge, huge issue. Airplane seats, bicycles are a non-starter, walking into a restaurant, you're afraid that they're going to seat you in a booth that you won't be able to fit in. Everywhere you go, you're afraid that if you sit down, you might break the chair, because that's happened to you a few times and it's mortifying. So every chair before you sit, you're kind of looking at it. How strong is that chair?
Our next speaker, Adam Sudd, knows all about the pain and shame that can accompany obesity. In 2012, he weighed 350 pounds. He was struggling with multiple addictions and serious chronic illnesses, including type 2 diabetes and heart disease. He also was dealing with mental health disorders. Adam's life nearly came to an end when he attempted suicide by drug overdose. But since then, he's lost 200 pounds, he's reversed all of his chronic diseases, he's gotten off all of his medications, and he has now maintained a healthy weight and been sober for the last 10 years.
But as you can imagine, it was not easy for Adam to develop a healthy and loving relationship with his body, particularly when people around him were so judgmental towards him.
It's very easy for someone who has never lived in a larger body to cast criticism on someone who is. And there's actually a part of evolutionary psychology that kind of explains why this seems to happen so much. So from the perspective of an individual who's never lived in a larger body, maybe they've always been very thin, and they're a person who can actually eat larger amounts of foods and they really don't gain weight. And they know how much food they eat, and they know how much food they eat when they eat a lot. And then they see someone in a larger body and they do this thing with themselves. And what they're doing is they're creating a story to make sure that everyone around knows that they'll never be that person. What they do is they say, well, I know how much I eat every day, and I've never gained weight. How much must this person be? How lazy must this person be? How much lack of discipline must they have? I'm not that. And that's a terrible thing to do. Because I'm going to tell you now, people who've lived in larger bodies, people like myself, we know more about moderation than anyone else in the world. We know more about overexertion. We know more about restriction than anyone could ever possibly understand, and it's failed us every single time.
Many people today struggle with weight issues, and often unsuccessfully. So there's a common perception that their problems are caused by a lack of willpower or a lack of motivation, and that these people are failures. But that isn't true. In fact, many of the people struggling with weight issues have tremendous willpower and motivation and are immensely successful in other areas of their lives. I'm thinking about Oprah Winfrey, for example. She obviously has been a tremendous success in her career, and yet she has had a very long and very public struggle with her weight. How is it that when it comes to weight, so many people, including those who are incredibly successful in other areas of their lives, are unable to consistently accomplish their goals?
Today, billions of people, including more than 2/3 of all Americans, are overweight or obese. More than 108 million people in the US right now are on a diet. The average dieter makes 3 or 4 attempts each year. But less than 1% of these attempts lead to sustained and successful weight loss. I can't think of any other domain in which so many people have been trying so hard with such frustrating results. 50 years ago, just 4% of the people in the US were obese. Today, it's 40%, and it's rising. Has something serious changed in our food supply in these last 50 years?
The Pulitzer Prize-winning author Michael Moss has found that the large food companies have hired scientists who they call, and this is the industry term, craveability experts. Now, these craveability experts have been given the explicit task of enhancing the craveability of the foods they sell. Frankly, this sounds to me a lot like they have been deliberately increasing the addictive nature of the foods that make up an ever-increasing percentage of the American diet.
Humans are very disciplined creatures. We're amazingly willful. We're amazingly practical. We know when something's wrong. And we wouldn't continue to make that decision if it didn't feel somehow like the right thing to do. How has the environment shifted so far from what is representative of our natural history and our natural behavior that this person can't escape that reality? We have, as Garth Davis puts it, an obesogenic environment. You go out into this environment and the easiest thing for you to do is gain weight. The easiest thing for you to do is gain weight. The hardest thing for you to do is to reorganize the environment to look like one where health is an easy response. So if that's true, the obesity epidemic that we're experiencing is far less a result of the individual as it is the environment that they live in.
It's important to understand that people have very strong feelings from the experiences that they've had. And when a person has gained weight and they're not sure why, and they're trying really hard to follow good advice, or what they thought was good advice, and they're not getting the results that they saw on TV, they might feel like a failure. And not just like a failure in controlling their health, but gee, if I can't control my weight, maybe I won't be a good employee. Maybe I won't be a good parent. And these feelings really get magnified. But I think once a person realizes it's not you, it's bad foods, a toxic food environment, foods that our great-great-great-great-grandparents never heard of, that these foods can be addicting, and that can happen to anybody.
The foods that we have in our food supply today are literally, truly, actually physiologically addictive. So it's not that they're addictive like a metaphor, right? They're actually addictive. As a matter of fact, interestingly, I just learned this recently, the original studies that were done on the dopamine addiction curve in the nucleus accumbens, they were done in rodents, and the addictive substance they used in those studies was glucose. They didn't use cocaine. They didn't use opiates. They used glucose. That's what they did. They injected the rats with essentially flour, pure glucose, not mitigated by any fiber. So these foods work like drugs in the brain. They produce the same dopamine spike, not as high of a spike as crack cocaine. But as someone who was addicted to crack cocaine, what I want to say is when I quit crack cocaine, I had a world to return to, going to 12-step meetings, getting back with my family, enrolling in community college, getting a job at a movie theater. I had a world to enter into where literally nobody was suggesting or pushing crack cocaine in my direction. Nobody, right? But the person who's food addicted has nowhere to hide. They can't even drive from home to work without billboards and cues and logos bombarding them with the suggestion to now deviate back into their addiction, right? So it's not just the cues. It's not just the social pressure. It's also that you can't stop eating. So you've got to figure out how you're going to engage and interact with your drug every single day. And the food circuits in our brain are so primitively wired. The getting and the eating of food was built into our brains on a moment-by-moment basis in a way that no other motivation or drive system was. So the food addiction systems have such a powerful part of the brain to hijack and accentuate. There's no other drug of abuse like it.
But what we know now within the realm of obesity, that there are so many other factors that go into place beyond just them pushing back from the table. It's not always so much a thing of willpower for people. There are some genetic factors, certainly, that play a part, environmental factors that play a part into that. There are some areas where people don't have access to exercise safely. And so you are going to see higher rates of obesity and heart disease and health conditions in those communities. We know that there are certain parts of the country where the water even isn't safe. So, if people can't drink clean water, then yeah, they're going to resort to things in a bottle, which can look like fruit juice and can look like soda, which can also promote these unhealthy conditions.
We have a lot of people who have limited financial resources and who are living in areas where healthy and affordable food isn't readily accessible or even available to them. It makes total sense that they would tend to purchase the cheapest calories, which almost always turn out to be the highly processed junk foods.
These are the food-like substances that today make up almost 2/3 of the calories eaten in the United States. The problem is that these foods have enormous amounts of added sugar and salt and fat in them, while most of the nutrients have been stripped away.
I am a big fan of listening to our bodies and heeding their wisdom. But if our taste buds and our brains have been hijacked by addictive junk foods, then are our body cues and desires actually working for us? I mean, isn't it in the nature of addiction that it distorts or overwhelms our natural instincts for health and well-being and replaces them with an obsession to get another fix of whatever it is that we've become addicted to?
No wonder so few diets actually work. For a little more insight, we'll hear next from Chuck Carroll. A few years ago, Chuck, who is 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed 420 pounds and had a 66-inch waist. Today, he's known widely as the weight loss champion, which is a name that was given to him by an NFL player in recognition of the incredible 280 pounds Chuck lost and has kept off for the last 8 years. Today, Chuck's trim and fit, and he attributes his sustained weight loss mainly to his whole foods plant-based diet. But at one time, Chuck was promoting diet fads while hosting a popular radio show on Big 100.3 FM. Some of the diets that have become popular are so bizarre, they would be laughable if they didn't reflect the desperation of so many people.
People look at diets like they're a short-term thing, and they are. I'm going to go on this diet and I'm going to lose X amount of weight, but nobody plans for what comes after that. You can't stay on the keto diet your entire life. For me, when I was endorsing that on Big 100.3, it was something called the cookie diet. I wasn't going to stay on the cookie diet for the rest of my life. More recently, we've seen a surge in weight loss drugs.
Wait a second, the cookie diet.
I'm telling you, Ocean.
Do tell.
Okay, rewind. All right, here we go. The cookie diet was this magnificently designed, and I'm going to use magnificently in quotes there. Draw your own conclusions as I explain this. A cookie for breakfast. You drink a lot of water with that, and that's supposed to keep you full till lunch. Another cookie at lunch. You drink a lot of water with that, and that's supposed to keep you full until dinner. And then you eat this sensible dinner. They don't define what a sensible dinner is. They just say, make sure that you're eating some vegetables. Okay. So with no real guidance anywhere, off we go on this cookie diet. And the cookies, man, they weren't Oreos, they weren't your mom's chocolate chips, and they certainly weren't grandma's oatmeal raisin. These were garbage cookies, man. And they did not keep you full, especially, I think, probably because my stomach was so large at that point. You're telling me this one little cookie is supposed to carry me? Like, that's not happening, Jack. No wonder I only made it 3 days. Like, that was part of it. So it was just a really poorly crafted idea that to this day still exists, but I have not heard of anybody long-term having success on this. As a matter of fact, the shop that I was endorsing locally folded pretty daggone quickly. Sorry, it didn't work, guys. But yeah, that's the cookie diet, man. You tell me, do you think that's sustainable?
No. But I can think that it could be monetarily sustainable because it sounds like there's some marketing that can get behind that.
That's a cookie. Who doesn't like a cookie?
People want to hear good things about their bad habits, right?
Of
The
course.
donut diet, same thing, right?
Exactly the same thing. So it's just clever marketing and smoke and mirrors, but you're not going to get to that long-term solution.
The cookie diet is obviously absurd, but it is far from the only fad diet that's out there. And to my eyes, the fact that people are desperate enough to try these odd and sometimes even bizarre diets reflects how despairing and anxious they feel about their weight.
Some of us think that if we judge something harshly enough, we can make it change. So we will criticize ourselves as a way to try to motivate ourselves to change behavior. Does that work with weight?
I don't think it works with anything. Interestingly, the ones that try to shame us and critique us into changing are usually a part of ourselves that we call the inner critic part, right? A lot of us wanted to change badly, and maybe had an adult figure in our life that used to criticize us. A lot of us did. And we developed a protective part of ourselves that's trying to, it's trying to help us. It's trying to help us be happy and well and liked and thriving, right? But that part of ourselves inside of us shames us and criticizes us into trying to do better. And it's not an adaptive strategy. As a matter of fact, that shame spiral is what a lot of people eat over. The internal anxiety of it is so intense that the numbness that's produced by eating these addictive foods that flood the brain with dopamine and produce a euphoria and a release very similar to a little bit of opium, using a lot of those same neurotransmitter receptors in the brain, they seek that relief with food to escape that criticism. So ironically, not only does it not work, it produces often the opposite effect, and weight can go ever higher.
Would you believe that I was put on blood pressure medication when I was 14? Just a sophomore in high school. Already my blood pressure was like 180, 190 over 100, sometimes even 110. And the doctors were so concerned, they put me even at that tender age on blood pressure. Is because my diet was the standard American diet, copious amounts of fast food, ultra processed food, just on steroids. And I did not know at that time that for me, my particular experience, and I'm sure a lot of people watching share the same story, food is as addictive as any drug out there. And it got its hooks in me, something fierce. And so by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was already having chest pains. I was 420 pounds, and I'm 5'5" tall on a good day. So I have a 66-inch waist at that point, and my prospects, even for living to see 30, were just not that good. Pretty scary to be that young age, knowing heart disease runs in your family and already having chest pains.
Our next guest was more than 400 pounds and developed a plan that worked for him. And Chuck Carroll is here this morning to share his story and his weight loss journey. Good morning, Chuck. I want to begin with when we just saw that picture before the break of you 400 pounds. When you see that picture and you see yourself today, what goes through your mind?
Well, first, it was really hard to see that picture for a long time because I was ashamed really of being that heavy. And at this point, I've lost this weight 6 years now. And it's hard for me to even recognize the person in that picture. But still, I carry that with me every day, and it inspires me still to keep moving forward and maintain this weight loss.
In the first couple of years, how long did it take before you said, okay, I'm okay now. I don't have to worry about going back to that life?
It's really 3-4 years. I had to really get in this routine because I look at weight loss. For me, it was really a story of food addiction. And so I think of it as a smoker. You and I were talking about this. A person stops smoking, they think after 5 years they can pick up a cigarette, have just one, they'll be fine. Well, no, because the next day they're in line, they've got another pack of cigarettes in their hand. Well, for me, I think of fast food kind of in the same light. So I am not going to put myself in a position to even go back anywhere close to back to what I was.
We just heard Chuck Carroll telling us that he thinks of fast food in the same light as cigarettes. Actually, that is not just a metaphor. It is widely known that for decades, tobacco companies hooked people on cigarettes by making their products more addictive. But less well known is the fact that many of today's unhealthy foods have been brought to market by Big Tobacco, which has used similar strategies to hook people on processed food.
In the 1980s, the tobacco giants Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds could see that their cigarette sales might be going down. So they diversified their businesses. They acquired a bunch of major food brands, including Kraft, General Mills, and Nabisco. In late 2023, a study published in the journal Addiction found that after buying these major food companies, the tobacco companies sought to make their food products more addictive. In the US, the steepest increase in the prevalence of what's called hyperpalatable foods that have been laced with added sugar, fat, and salt occurred when Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds owned the world's leading food brands. They were among the first to exploit the biological reality that we are hardwired to seek out fat, sugar, and salt.
I think that evolutionarily speaking, we have been hardwired to love fat, and we have been hardwired to love sugar, and I think we have been hardwired to love salt. And so you put those three things in your body, those are highly addictive substances. And so because back in the day when food wasn't as abundant as it is today, we had to hold on to those things. Like if you get nuts, like super great. Fat sources, like let's eat it, let's store it, great. But 200 years ago, it's not like you could go out and just buy a jar of dry roasted peanuts or honey roasted peanuts or chocolate covered almonds, right? But you can blow through a whole bag or a whole jar, no problem. You could go to the drive-through 5, 6, 7 times a day if you want and really load up. And so while our access to food has changed drastically over the past century or so, evolutionarily speaking, we're talking about millions of years. So you tell me, can our bodies physically change to undo 1 million years worth of evolution in just the span of 1 century? No freaking way. So we're like hardwired to hold on to these things and to crave it, and your brain loves it and it operates off of that and it wants more and more and more and more.
As well as adding copious amounts of sugar and fat and salt directly into our food supply, the junk food companies have also added huge amounts of cheese, which is not only high in saturated fat and salt, but also contains some addictive substances in its own right.
Well, first of all, it's important to understand that foods really can be addictive. Cheese especially, the people don't realize there are actually narcotic compounds in cheese. They're called casomorphins. They were in the milk. They were sort of the mother cow's way of providing a little bit of a natural sedative to the calf. And when you turn milk into cheese, the casomorphins are concentrated. They go to the brain. They attach to the same brain receptors that narcotic drugs attach to. So cheese is not kind of addicting. It is exactly addicting. And there are reasons why people just eat more and more and more of it. Once you realize that, it's not you, it's not your bad childhood, it's not all these things that we imagine, that was it. It's the food. When it comes to salty, fatty, sugary foods, they're triggering part of the brain that is beyond liking. And it puts us into overdrive. And when we realize that, we also realize that none of these are things that existed a long time ago. There was no table sugar until people figured out, I can take sugar cane or sugar beets and I can send it to a factory and eliminate all the pulp and all the fiber, and I can concentrate it into a form that Mother Nature never thought of. And so instead of it being the sweetness of an apple, I've got sweetness that I can just push, further than anyone ever had. There wasn't any cheese until people figured out how to make cows stand still. And once they did that, and you have a dairy industry, and then suddenly humans are getting narcotics in their food, that's the way it is.
In that context, with all that's stacked against us, how do we get free?
Oh, how do we get free from food addiction? So the first step is to know where you stand, because food addiction is not a binary construct. It's a continuum. So if you think about it from 1 on the low end to 10 on the high end, I call it the food addiction susceptibility scale. And everyone has a brain that's more or less susceptible. I'm a 10 on that scale. Other people, like you, are a 1 or a 2 or a 3 on that scale. But let's say you discover that you're a 7 on that scale. And let's say you have, a good 20, 30, 40 pounds that you would like to lose, right? Well, now you're armed with a certain amount of information. You know that you have enough food addiction on board that run-of-the-mill efforts to eat the right foods aren't going to be enough. You're probably going to want to abstain from the foods that give you the most trouble completely. For someone who is higher on the food addiction susceptibility scale, abstaining completely from sugar and flour is a great move. It's really, really freeing. People seem to get sugar, but they don't understand flour. Why flour? And it turns out that glucose, unadulterated by fiber, is extremely addictive. As soon as it's a whole real food, it's not problematic. So I have no issues with wheat. Go eat your wheat just in the form of wheat berries, whole real foods are all fine.
When sugar and flour are refined down to a fine powder, this process dramatically increases the surface area of the food, which means it can be absorbed rapidly into the human body.
And this is one of the reasons we emphasize eating whole, real foods and avoiding things that have been extracted and then refined and purified into fine powders. Digesting whole foods is a bit like taking a block of ice and putting it on a hot driveway on pavement in Arizona in the summer and letting it melt, which will take some time. And that's how your body is designed to function. But digesting foods like sugar and flour is more like taking snow cone shavings and sprinkling them on that same driveway, where they're gonna pretty much just melt on contact. When we eat refined foods, they tend to digest very quickly. This floods the brain with dopamine, and this reinforces the addictive cycle.
Yes, it does. And that's why the concept of bright lines can be so very helpful for people struggling to achieve healthy relationships with food and with their bodies.
Bright lines are clear, unambiguous boundaries that you just don't cross. And we understand this concept intuitively, right? Someone who quits smoking puts a bright line between themselves and nicotine or cigarettes of any kind, right? People who quit drinking and go to AA, or maybe don't go to AA, but decide to not drink, have a bright line. When it comes to food, it's much harder because we need to eat. But if someone is profoundly addicted to food, they're going to need to have bright enough lines around their food that they know with every bite they take, whether it's on their plan or off their plan. The idea is that just like the alcoholic gets sober and then has the job one day at a time of not taking the first drink. They're not trying to not get drunk. They're trying to not take the first sip of the first drink. You need to know where that boundary is so that you can make it your job to never cross it.
We live in a culture where most people eat whatever they feel like eating, regardless of the health implications. And we've got a food industry that is manufacturing foods which are literally designed to be addictive. In this context, I think we'd all benefit from having our own bright lines that serve our own unique needs, our personal ethics, and our own particular biochemical and metabolic individuality.
And if we don't have bright lines, we will tend to be at the mercy of food manufacturers that, frankly, have zero interest in our health or our well-being.
We've been hearing a lot from Susan Pierce Thompson. She's a neuroscientist who created a program called Bright Line Eating that helps people to apply the weight loss principles that she's developed. A few years ago, Food Revolution Network collaborated with Susan in putting on a pair of 8-week courses. Between those two courses, we had 5,600 participants, nearly all of whom joined the program hoping to lose weight. And wow, did they ever lose weight. In fact, in just 8 weeks, these participants combined to lose more than 90,000 pounds, which was an average of 16 pounds per person.
When I first saw that number, 90,000 pounds lost in 8 weeks, I was floored. And I also felt a lot of gratitude because I thought of the many cases of diabetes that were averted and the many heart attacks and cases of cancer that were prevented. And I thought of all these people who can now be more present in their lives. They feel more confident in their bodies and they can show up more fully for the people they love.
For the last 9 years since I started Bright Line Eating, I've been helping people to lose their weight and get more freedom from food obsession and from food cravings. But I've also been collecting data on the results and publishing the data in peer-reviewed studies, presenting them at peer-reviewed scientific conferences. And some of the studies that we've published have been truly remarkable. For one thing, the weight loss has been stellar, several times more than what you see with Noom or Weight Watchers or any other published data from commercial weight loss programs. And in fact, levels of weight loss that are comparable to semaglutide drugs, these weight loss drugs where people lose, enormous amounts of weight really fast. People lose that with Bright Line Eating. So really stellar weight loss results. And they maintain the weight loss for years. So that's obviously good too.
Weight loss does seem to be a real possibility if you're not eating processed foods anymore. And eating a more plant-based diet can give you a huge advantage too.
It's true. And this is backed up by the remarkable series of studies called the Adventist Health Studies. Researchers conducting these many decades-long studies involving more than 100,000 people have found that vegetarians, and particularly vegans, have far fewer weight challenges than people eating a more typical diet.
Yes. And for example, they found that 55-year-old male and female vegans weigh on average 30 pounds less than non-vegetarians of similar height. And this means they weigh, on average, about what Americans averaged weighing in 1960, before the massive swing towards obesity that we've seen in the last 3 generations. The researchers also found that the closer the study participants were to being vegetarian, the lower their risk of diabetes, of high blood pressure, and metabolic syndrome. And in the case of type 2 diabetes, the prevalence in vegans and vegetarians is half that of non-vegetarians. And this is the case even after controlling for a vast number of socioeconomic and other lifestyle factors.
It's eating either an exclusively whole plant diet or primarily a whole food plant-based diet. The operative word being whole, because, I've been a vegan for over 46 years for ethical reasons, and that's fantastic. But for the first 26 years I was vegan, I was 70 pounds heavier, and I actually had what they call precancerous polyps from eating a junk food vegan diet. So the operative word is the whole food, eating foods, as Dr. Hans Diel say, as grown from a plant, not manufactured in a plant, and really either completely eliminating or greatly decreasing processed food, the sugars, the oils, food that our grandparents didn't eat.
And how is it that contributes to healthy weight?
Well, okay, this is actually my favorite topic of all. It's a 2-word phrase called calorie density, because as luck would have it, nature skewed calorie density in our favor, both for health and weight loss. The foods that are most calorically dilute, which means that have the fewest calories per pound, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, also have the highest nutrient density. So you don't have to worry about eating particular foods for health or for weight loss. It's the same foods found in nature.
Some of that comes from the research on calorie density, which really measured the foods based on the calories per pound. And they discovered that if you ate food that was about 500 to 600 calories per pound, you could eat unlimited amounts of food and maintain a normal body weight. Unfortunately, almost all the calories that people eat today are below that red line of 600 calories. And, we look at oil, it's 4,000 calories per pound. Even nuts and seeds, we have to be careful. They're 2,400 calories per pound. Chocolate, about 1,600 to 1,800 calories per pound. Processed food, 2,000. So most of the calories people are consuming today are calorie dense, and you'll never win that game.
I came up with about a dozen different aspects of one's diet that can bring down body fat. So one I talk about a lot is, for example, caloric density, the fact that some foods have more calories per unit weight, per unit volume, per mouthful, per plateful than others, such that some foods are literally impossible to overeat. Like you couldn't, like strawberries, you couldn't eat. You fill your stomach to bursting all day long, and you'd lose weight because it's just you couldn't get in even 2,000 calories in. Right? Some foods, or wheelbarrows full of greens, right? Even you'd starve your way to nothing, right? Where some foods are incredibly concentrated in calories, so just a tiny amount can take up your whole caloric intake for the day, and then all of a sudden you're left hungry the rest of the day. And you're going to end up getting weight. So that's just one of a dozen or so, I think maybe 20 different aspects of diet that play a role in how much calories you actually eat, how much calories you absorb. It doesn't matter just what you eat, but when you eat it, in what context you eat it. And so I talk about chronobiology, meal timing, and exercise timing, and all sorts of really interesting ways where you can actually have different effects based on kind of how food is eaten, in hopes of accelerating weight loss in someone who's already eating pretty healthy but wants to still be leaner still. The bottom line is that a diet centered around whole plant foods is not only the way to decrease your risk of dying from many of the leading killers, also found to be the most effective way to lose weight.
A diet centered around whole plant foods may be the most effective way to lose weight and the healthiest way to lose weight. But there are now drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy that have recently taken the weight loss world by storm. These drugs are far more effective for weight loss than any drug ever before released.
They are, and they're expensive. They typically cost more than $10,000 per year. Some cost more than $15,000 per year.
This is all great news for certain drug companies. The current demand for these drugs is so high that the Danish drug maker Novo Nordisk has literally become Europe's most valuable company and is now responsible for most of Denmark's economic growth. But are these drugs a good idea? How do they work? And what are their downsides?
Everybody is asking me these days about semaglutide drugs. So These drugs for weight loss, Wegovy was recently approved by the FDA for weight loss, but they're originally diabetes drugs, Ozempic, tirzepatide. These are diabetes drugs, and they work, they're GLP-1 agonists. So what that means is that they work on the insulin glucose system. So they work on the pancreas to produce more insulin. They work on the liver to produce less glucagon. So they balance out the blood sugar system. And it turns out that this GLP-1 agonist also goes right to the brainstem to produce effects that dampen the hypothalamic appetite, essentially. They're satiety enhancers. They're appetite killers, if you will. So people taking these drugs lose their appetite. They suddenly don't want to eat as much. They don't eat as much. They suddenly feel full way more easily. So they're not necessarily eating a bunch more healthy food. They're just eating a lot less overall. And so people are losing a significant amount of weight, 15 to 18% of their starting body weight. So it's not going to take someone, from extreme morbid obesity to thin on average, 15 to 18% of their starting body weight. But that is way more than what other weight loss interventions have delivered historically. Historically, 5 to 7% of starting body weight is all you get, and then you regain it after about 6 months. Now, bright line eating delivers 15 to 18% of starting body weight as well. So there is one behavioral intervention called bright line eating in the published literature, and I have to say I have a conflict of interest here because I founded Bright Line Eating and I published those studies. But those studies show that you can actually change how you eat and eat healthier foods and get the same results and keep the weight off for years, right? Published studies show that. But people like a pill. And these aren't pills, these are injectables. So it's an injection that you get once a week right now. I know they're working on pills feverishly. They're trying to create pills. There are downsides to these drugs, and there are upsides too. I think that the weight loss is not a trivial thing. People are really wanting to lose weight. There are good reasons for losing weight, for your joints and your mood and your self-esteem and your confidence and your sex drive and your heart and your lungs, and pretty much every system in the body is healthier when you get that weight off. And these drugs have shown to have some cardiovascular benefits as well. But there are side effects, some of which are quite severe. So the FDA has put a big black box warning on them. That's the highest level of warning around thyroid cancer. So that's one potential issue. And another issue with them is terrible gastrointestinal side effects. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, intestinal blockages, sharp intestinal pain, side effects that are so bad that a lot of people are unable to continue on with the drugs. For other people who do continue on, some of the side effects start to lessen after about a month on the drugs. But the drugs are doing something to the small intestine, and we don't have any safety studies beyond 2 years. So the longest safety trials in the weight loss world were like 1.5 years, and the longest trials with diabetes were 2 years. So we don't know what happens long-term with these drugs. And the biggest issue that I see is that research is very clear on this. Once you stop taking the drug, what happens is you gain all the weight back. You gain all the weight back. So if you're going to take a semaglutide drug for weight loss, you need to really ask yourself, am I willing to be on this drug forever? Because that's what it would take to solve this problem.
And the cost of them to the consumer, if someone is, or to an insurance company, is pretty high as well, right?
Yeah, it's like $15,000 a year right now. And so people are literally taking out second mortgages to get these drugs. They're extremely expensive right now.
And for life, or else the weight comes right back.
That's right.
Well, the problem is with the drugs come side effects. And in addition to that, you will always need more and more drugs. So what's interesting about individuals when you start prescribing drugs, they don't feel well. And I think we've really kind of settled in this country, and not feeling well is normal. So that when people actually start a whole food plant-based diet and they start removing the drugs and the side effects, and they have energy and they're like, feel awake and alert and their minds are functioning, they're like, wow, okay, this is what it's like. So the food is such a much stronger and better prescription for any ailment than drugs typically.
We've long known that there are healthy and unhealthy ways to lose weight. I mean, you could lose weight by getting cancer or by getting addicted to crystal meth. but neither of those are healthy. I think we need to ask whether these Ozempic-type drugs are themselves unhealthy ways to lose weight.
As Susan said, as soon as you stop taking them, the weight comes right back. And as well, there's something called Ozempic face, which is a term for a common side effect of these drugs. They can cause sagging and aging of facial skin and a loss of fat from the face that results in an aged or wrinkled appearance.
Yes, and also because people taking these drugs are eating so much less, it's very important that the foods they do eat be highly nutritious, nutrient-dense foods that are not calorically dense, or they might be at risk of malnutrition.
On the other hand, proponents of these drugs point to a recent clinical trial which found that they reduced cardiovascular events by 20%. Some people are saying this represents a breakthrough in cardiovascular care.
But you don't need to take a drug that makes you nauseous, costs an arm and a leg, and ages your face to reduce your risk of cardiovascular problems by 20%. In fact, just last year, a comprehensive analysis was published in a peer-reviewed medical journal that drew on international data from 37 other studies. The researchers concluded that eating fewer animal-based foods and replacing them with more whole plant foods is linked to a much greater reduction in both cardiovascular events and type 2 diabetes. And this is important because it points to the healthiest way to lose weight. The study found, for example, that even just replacing one serving a day of processed meat, like hot dogs or sausage or deli meats or bacon, with one serving of whole grains or nuts or beans, resulted in a 23 to 36% lower risk of cardiovascular problems, including stroke, heart attack, and coronary artery disease. That's far better than the 20% reduction you get with Ozempic-type drugs.
Yes, and all of the side effects are positive. The case for using whole foods, plant-predominant diets to lose weight and reduce the incidence of diabetes and reduce the incidence of cardiovascular disease and improve overall health just keeps getting stronger. In the Adventist Health Study 2, people eating a semi-vegetarian diet had a 31% lower risk for diabetes than the average person. That sounds good, a 31% drop in diabetes risk. And it is good. But I think this is important too. Those eating a lacto-ovo vegetarian diet had a 57% lower risk. And the people eating a vegan diet had even more protection with a 62% drop in risk compared to even health-conscious omnivores.
So we have a 31% drop in risk for diabetes on a semi-vegetarian diet, a 57% lower risk on a lacto-ovo vegetarian diet, and a 62% lower risk for vegans. This would seem to indicate that the more plant-based, the better.
I'm remembering another study in which plant-based diets were found to reduce insulin requirements in people with type 2 diabetes by 60%, and half of the participants were able to eliminate insulin completely. That's remarkable in and of itself. But what made these findings even more striking was that the participants in this study only had to stay on a plant-based diet for 16 days to achieve these remarkable results.
So let's look at this in a lot more depth. What really causes type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance? And what can we do about it?
Many people that are obese end up becoming diabetic because it starts with insulin resistance. They start to get resistant to the insulin, probably more because of this phenomenon called lipotoxicity. And then they also end up developing a fatty liver. So you got fat on your body, you get fat in the liver. And the liver is responsible for over 400 different mechanisms in your body. And so if that liver is not working properly, then you're going to be losing a lot. You're not going to be able to metabolize medications. You're not going to be able to secrete things that are going to break down food particles, or you're not going to be able to maintain homeostasis in your glucose levels quite as well because that liver is not functioning properly.
So type 2 diabetes is caused by the excess kind of ectopic accumulation of body fat, by which I mean you have fat stores. There's certain areas of your body that your body stores excess fat, but if it reaches a certain fat threshold, your body starts sticking fat in places it shouldn't, like your liver, like your muscles, and your pancreas. And when fat builds up in those organs, it interferes with their ability to respond to a hormone produced by your pancreas called insulin. And you become insulin resistant when you have too much fat in those three particular organs. And what insulin does is it reduces your blood sugar. And so when your insulin doesn't work very well, your blood sugars go up. And that leads to type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and can lead to all sorts. It can lead to eye damage and kidney damage and nerve damage.
Insulin resistance is really just your body's failure to respond to the insulin it's making. So our beta cells in our pancreas make insulin. The insulin attaches to receptor sites on our cells. And then when it attaches, it kind of sends a signal to these glucose transporters to hurry up and get to the gate so they can, help transport glucose so the gates can be opened and the glucose can come in and be used for energy. And so what happens when our bodies don't respond to the insulin or become resistant, if you will, or insensitive to the insulin, is that the sugar builds up in our bloodstream because it just can't get into the blood cells. And so when it builds up, our pancreas ends up putting out more insulin. We end up with this thing called hyperinsulinemia. And so our pancreas is working really hard to get this extra insulin out so we can keep our blood sugars in a safe range. But what happens over time is the pancreas starts to get tired and it puts out a little less insulin, and then we end up with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, and it increases our risk for heart disease and PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And all insulin resistance is not just about type 2 diabetes. It increases our risk for multiple diseases and for obesity as well. And so this is a huge, huge problem.
And so that's why it's critically important to be insulin sensitive. So your natural hormone actually works the way it's intended. How do we do that? We keep this excess fat out of those critical organs. And so if you are obese, then one way you can reverse diabetes is just bring your level of body fat down. But even skinny people can develop type 2 diabetes if they're taking in fat this way. If you're eating saturated fat, and different fats have different effects. If you're eating saturated fats, that saturated fat can interfere with insulin signaling within your body, even if you don't have excess kind of fat around your abdomen. And so the fat can come from your diet, fat can come from your body. Either way, that saturated fat can build up in critical organs, making them less sensitive to insulin, and you can end up with prediabetes, diabetes, and that can increase your risk of heart disease, on down the list. And so by changing your diet, lowering your saturated fat intake, and losing excess, particularly visceral fat, the kind of fat coiled around your digestive organs, can improve your insulin sensitivity, sometimes enough to completely reverse diabetes, where you have normal blood sugars on a normal diet, which is where we all want to be.
So my course of action for people that have type 2 diabetes is, first, I get rid of all of the insults. I try to just take that down. I do a process of detoxification. I help people detox through food. I let them use food to detoxify their system, and then I teach them how to eat after that so that they never have to see type 2 diabetes again.
So saturated fat is found predominantly meat, dairy, and junk. So number one source is actually dairy, then meat, and then kind of processed foods in general, where they add some of these tropical oils like coconut oil, palm kernel oil, palm oil, these junky tropical oils that are the rare plant-based sources of saturated fat. And so even someone eating a plant-based diet, but using some of these spreads and things that are formed around coconut oil, or like there's coconut oil-based ice creams and things like that, you can get a saturated fat intake that really is as bad as someone eating kind of a cheeseburger, and you can end up with the same kind of problems with insulin resistance, with high cholesterol, high levels of inflammation. And so that's why this whole food plant-based diet, that's why that's really, I think, a preferable term to something like vegetarian or vegan, which as a physician just tells me what you don't eat. I mean, Do you actually eat vegetables? And that's the critical part.
When I see people that they've had type 2 diabetes and they start having all of these complications, elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol levels, all of those things happening, they start on that path to disease, heart disease, and all of those different things occurring. And to see that dial back and see them not have those issues anymore, gratifying. That is like amazing.
Yeah.
I get so excited.
Yeah.
And, and it never gets old. Like I'm talking to people and they're like, I think I'm probably more excited than they are. But it's just healing at the speed of food is really amazing.
Eating less sugar can be somewhat helpful, but what we know is that insulin resistance is really driven by overweight, especially overweight when we carry excess fat in our abdominal area, and particularly when it's visceral fat. So fat can be stored, at the surface of our skin, and that's called subcutaneous fat. And it's not as dangerous as visceral fat, which is fat in and around our vital organs. And so when we get a lot of this hard belly fat, the visceral fat, it causes the production of cytokines, which are inflammatory, and so it promotes inflammation. But so excess body weight in a consumption of a highly processed diet that's high in a lot of inflammatory compounds. But this triggers, and in physical inactivity as well, they trigger lipotoxicity, inflammation, oxidative stress, and dysbiosis. And lipotoxicity is really the kingpin. This is the driver of insulin resistance. And what it is it's when you're eating so much, you have to store the excess, and usually you store it in your adipose tissue. And we have really unlimited reserves to store extra calories in adipose tissue. Now, sometimes when our body's flooded with excess calories, we tend to store the excess we start to overwhelm those systems of storage, and we start to store it in our liver and in our muscle tissue. And then it can actually overflow into our pancreas. And what happens when we store fat in our pancreas is it kills beta cells. When we store it in our liver, it causes severe insulin resistance. And so a lot of people get so focused on carbohydrates and sugars and cutting those out. But when you do that, you do nothing to get rid of lipotoxicity, which is really the driver of insulin resistance. And what you really need to do is get rid of processed foods, and you need to cut back on fat as well, especially unhealthy fats that really contribute to this lipotoxicity. So really what you need to do is eat less. You need to be in a caloric deficit so you can get rid of the excess fat that you're storing. And what is really good is some of the first fat to go when you start to do this is the fat that's stored in your vital organs.
Our bodies have evolved to be able to go without food for many hours or even several days or longer if needed. In prehistoric times, before humans began to farm, our ancestors were gatherers and hunters who evolved to survive and thrive for long periods without eating. They had to. It took a lot of time and energy to gather nuts and leaves and berries and to hunt fish or game.
Intermittent fasting, or time-restricted eating as it's also called, is an eating plan that switches between fasting and eating on a regular schedule.
Many diets focus on what you eat, but intermittent fasting is all about when you eat. So, is it actually helpful? If so, how do you do it to reap the benefits? And is it safe?
Time-restricted eating, and that's a good term, TRE. If you talk to a scientist in the world of fasting, they're going to tell you just by skipping breakfast, you really shouldn't use the term fasting. Fasting is 24 or 36 hours of not eating at all. Then you can apply the term fasting. But in the public and in the news and in the media, just skipping breakfast is typically called IF, intermittent fasting, right or wrong. It should be called TRE, time-restricted eating. Clearly, we eat too much, we eat too many calories, and we eat too many hours a day on average, and we need some strategy to cut back. And cutting out a meal a day is certainly a logical strategy, or cutting out 2 meals a day may be a logical strategy, but is it healthy? So there's a couple versions out there. There's a version called OMAD, 1 meal a day diet. And although it's attractive, and some people do it, I skip breakfast, I skip lunch, and I eat 2,400 calorie dinner. There were a couple studies published in the 20 years ago that suggested these were not helpful, that they do lead to more insulin resistance, higher cholesterol when you pack all your calories into a 2-3 hour window late in the day. Some people have lost weight, but it's not a healthy long-term diet. Much more popular is skipping breakfast and eating maybe in a 6-hour window, and that's often called intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, maybe eating from 12 to 6. And it should be a good solution. But in actual studies, one done at UCSF about 3 years ago by a cardiology colleague of mine, it didn't work. Dr. Ethan Weiss was a big advocate of skipping breakfast, but when he did a randomized study and followed up on the metabolic consequences, it didn't work, and he abandoned that approach in his own life and in his teaching. And a similar, fairly impressive study in China in the last year also failed to show that the anticipated benefits were there. Really, the pyramid of what's often called chrononutrition, eating time-wise for your benefit, is to pack more of your calories in breakfast. Eat breakfast like a king, a modest amount at lunch, lunch like a prince, and a small dinner, eat dinner like a pauper. That's a frequent expression. But the latest studies show when you do that, you actually lower your risk for type 2 diabetes significantly. You do lower your calorie intake by making that last meal of the day smaller and lighter. It's socially awkward, of course, if you're entertaining a dinner or you have various events. So you don't have to stick to it 100%. But several studies show skipping breakfast increases cardiovascular risk. That surprises people. But a major study in Madrid and other studies show it.
So it seems that skipping breakfast is not helpful.
But what about extended fasting? How long do you have to fast to get the benefits that you might want?
Usually is about 17 hours of fasting. And that inner cellular parts start to repair themselves. So bacteria and viruses that are inside the cell will be pushed out. Mitochondria that are lagging a little bit, maybe not producing enough energy, they re-energize. Toxins that are inside the cell, the body gets rid of. Your mitochondria start making more glutathione, that starts making more of CoQ10 and antioxidants that you need to keep the inner workings alive and doing their best.
There's a component called autophagy that actually occurs that the body in extended fasting will actually start to clean up the cell debris. And they think that's actually where you get the longevity component of extended fasting.
What the research shows is 17 to 72 hours is where you're going to see the greatest autophagy effect inside the cells. 72, which is why the 3-day water fast has become so popular. 72 hours is where it peaks. So I think of it like a dimmer switch. You go without food for 17 hours and all of a sudden the cells start to repair themselves, and they'll keep doing this up until they hit maximum repair at 72 hours. Research at 24 hours is that the whole microbiome starts to change, and we see intestinal stem cells come in and repair the inner lining of our gut. And you see something called geographical relocation of the microbes, where they spread apart. So now when we bring food back in, we're able to actually absorb nutrients better. Research on 36 hours of fasting or time-restricted eating shows that any stubborn fat or places your body has hid glucose or stored it, your body will go access that and burn it. So it's great for unsticking weight. 48 hours, you reset your whole dopamine system. You create new dopamine receptors. And then 72 hours of this time-restricted eating, you reboot your whole immune system.
Are there any dangers for people to water fast for that long?
It's a great question. So the dangers of water fasting too long, believe it or not, in a 3-day period are very minimal. And I actually, there's none that we could find where the human body wasn't meant to go without food for 3 days. There's none out there.
Some people feel really good with an extended fast. Some feel really fatigued. I know personally, after 24 hours, I feel less energetic. So I tend to not go more than 24 hours, but you just listen to your body. That's the really important piece there. Extended
fasting can also, besides improving insulin resistance, your lipid profiles, weight loss, but can come with that with, actually losing muscle as your body is looking for some type of nutrient resource. And so there's, again, some balances that you need to occur listening to your body. If you go more than 72 hours, you probably want to be under the medical supervision just to be monitoring all of those things and make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
The idea that type 2 diabetes is a progressive and irreversible disease is taught in most medical schools today, as well as in diabetes educator courses. It's also the belief that's held by many national and international diabetes organizations.
It is, but we've got a great deal of evidence in the scientific literature that type 2 diabetes actually is a reversible disease. For example, in one study that was funded by the National Institutes of Health, researchers found that a plant-based diet controlled blood sugar 3 times more effectively than a traditional diabetes diet that limited calories and carbohydrates. But also, within weeks on a plant-based diet, participants saw dramatic health improvements. They lost weight, their insulin sensitivity improved, and their A1C levels dropped. In some cases, you would never know they'd had the disease to begin with. The researchers concluded that a plant-based diet can be a powerful tool for preventing, managing, and also for reversing type 2 diabetes.
The first time I ever really understood the power of a whole food plant-based diet and with a type 2 diabetic was 11 years ago. I had a patient who was on 60 units of insulin and within 72 hours had to stop all of it because she embraced the whole food plant-based diet, but I didn't understand the power, but I quickly learned. So that allowed me, or she gave me the opportunity to be really careful. And when I do prescribe it with people, especially who are on insulin, I usually cut their insulin in half the first day. And there's certain oral medications that, I would do the similar thing. I would be cutting those back very quickly because I understand the insulin sensitivity may rise very quickly in certain individuals. I can always add more medications, but it's hard to chase someone who's dealing with low blood sugars, and that's an unsafe situation. So the things that are occurring is, one, you're removing a lot of the saturated fats that kind of are the starting block for type 2 diabetes. We also have high fiber, which changes the gut microbiome, which we also know can help decrease inflammation. The fiber also slows down the carbohydrate release, and so you get a less rise in the blood sugar, increases satiety, so that when you're eating, you tend to eat less. These are lower caloric foods. So there's so many wonderful things that occur in a whole food plant-based diet that affect not only the blood sugar, but the overall health of the body.
But we've got to start with good information. And the good information is, what are the foods that are healthy for you? Avoiding carbs, wrong. Bringing in vegetables and fruits and grains and beans, that's the right choice. When people make these healthy diet changes, suddenly, even if they're not increasing their exercise, even if they're not limiting calories or carbs, the weight just starts to come off. Not super fast. You lose half a pound per week. And that may not be fast, but a half a pound per week, that's 26 pounds per year. You're losing it faster than you put it on. So in our clinic and in our research studies and in all the doctors we talk with, our job is not to wag our finger at a patient. Our job is to be a coach who is working with somebody who doesn't know that she or he is a real potential athlete. We think of it that way. Anybody has that potential, and we're going to show them, here's how it works. Let's just put it to work, and everybody stumbles. Everybody goofs up. And so what do? You just love them right back. Come on, let's keep going. Let's see what we can do. And you always believe in every single person. And everybody has their own journey. And your job, our job, is to support that.
Cut down or cut out ultra-processed foods. Eliminate, ditch the soda, including diet soda. A lot of people don't know this, but although artificial sweeteners in diet sodas are non-nutritive, so you don't get a blood glucose spike from it, actually, it's worse for your metabolism than a regular can of soda, which is that's a pretty tall order. It's pretty hard to actually be worse than a can of regular soda. And I'll tell you why. It's been increasingly shown that the artificial sweeteners in diet sodas poison our gut microbiome. And our gut health, our gut bacteria actually help process glucose more efficiently. So in fact, you do actually have a elevation in your glucose trend when you drink a lot of diet sodas. So I would say ultra processed food, cut down or cut out sodas of all sorts. And you want to and you want to start eating more plant-based foods.
What works is 3 components. So the nutrition, the movement, and then the mindset and the mental aspect. And so what that looks like, nutrition, whole food, plant-based diet for sure. If you're eating whole food, plant-based, you don't need to count a calorie. You don't need to, you don't need to limit your kale. There is not a study out there that too much kale causes diabetes. So, you don't have to limit those things. And then your movement. If we're not moving our bodies, then we're not going to sustain weight loss in a good way. What that movement does is it naturally lowers our blood sugar, naturally lowers our blood pressure, makes us more lean, helps us to gain lean muscle. So that movement is definitely important. And then the mental health aspect. So studies have shown that if we aren't getting proper sleep, for example, the recommendation is 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, uninterrupted. But if we're not getting that proper sleep night by night, it actually triggers hormones in the body that make you more hungry, and that makes it harder for your natural metabolism to set in to keep you at a healthy weight when you're lacking sleep. Stress does that same thing. Stress, it raises those cortisol levels, which makes you more insulin resistant. And what we know about insulin resistance is that it's fat promoting. And so when these things are out of balance, then it's going to be really challenging for a person to get to a healthy weight and sustain a healthy weight. But when we get these things in balance and we're actually putting these lifestyle factors into place, so we're eating fruits and vegetables, we're moving our bodies, we're helping our mind, and we're getting sleep, we're getting stress out of our lives, then that is ultimately going to be the best way for sustainable weight loss.
I think there's a big difference between using food as a method for weight loss and lowering your biomarkers, and determining that food is going to be a way that your life feels like a safe, exciting place to be. The why is so important. If it's just a vehicle for weight loss, well, I'll give it up and I'll do it again later. If that's, and look, I'm not trying to shame someone if they just want to lose weight, but what I'm saying is it's fragile if that's your effort. It can always be put aside and come back to later, right? But when it's used as a way of designing a life where you can get up every single day and your body has permission to say yes to whatever it is, that's something that's really significant. As a person who lived in a body that was 350 pounds for years and who was struggling with substance use and depression and anxiety, so much of life I didn't have permission to say yes to. There was a lot of things I would have liked to have been a part of that I didn't feel like I had the right to be there. And so for me, the reason why my environment continues to this day to be a plant-exclusive environment that I have designed appropriately and accurately to service the life I want to live is because it is very important to me that my life feel like a safe, secure, and hopeful place to be. It has to be more than just the numbers. It has to be more than just a number on a scale or your lipid panel. Those are important, sure, but why? Why do you care if they go down? Why do you care if they go up? What is behind it that makes this something that you should pay attention to? What is it that's so important that if you lost it tomorrow, life might not feel like a place you want to be a part of? You can use nutrition as an act of service and protection for the things in your life that give you the experience of feeling fully and meaningfully alive. I think that for people who they kind of come and go from it, they haven't gotten to the point to where maybe they've attached it to a why that's significant. And the other thing is they might feel alone. I used to think, hey, Adam, you'd have done this yourself, by yourself, no matter what. But I think that that's a really ignorant statement on my part that I told myself for a while. I happened to fall into a group of people who lived and ate this way. My friend group looked like the life I wanted to live. This is really important. I tell people all the time when I coach them on behavior change is that you can want everything as much as possible, but you have to first make your environment look like the life you want. And I'm talking about the physical and the caloric environment. It's got to look like your goals. That's step one. And number two, your friends have to look like it too. And this is really important because when you're with your friends, and if you found friends that they don't have to do life exactly like you, maybe they don't have to be fully plant exclusive, but they have to be enough. It has to look enough like the life you want. And the reason why is when you're with them, everything about the way that they do life encourages you to continue doing yours that way. And every way that you do your life encourages them to do it. And now you're of service to each other.
Eating is a very social act, and this is true even if you eat your meals alone. There was a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine that looked at the health outcomes and the social ties of 5,000 adults over several decades. And the researchers found that if one sibling became obese during the study, the chances that another sibling of that same person would become obese increased by 40%. Now, the researchers thought that could be attributable to the fact that siblings share certain genes. But then the researchers noticed that the same pattern occurred in marriages. If a spouse became obese, then the odds of their partner also becoming obese shot up dramatically. And then they thought, well, that could be the result of the fact that spouses often share meals and lifestyle habits. But apparently there's still more to it, because the study also found that if participants had a close friend who became obese, the odds in the study of that participant themselves becoming obese rose by a stunning 60%. And in yet another study, it was found that if your friends are obese, you're 45% more likely to be obese yourself. And if your friends' friends are obese, you're 25% more likely to be obese. And if your friend's friend's friend is obese, you're 10% more apt to be obese, even if you've never met them. That's how interconnected we are.
Wow. We're affecting each other all the time in so many ways. And so the choices that we make, whether they're positive or negative, healthy or unhealthy, ripple out and they affect other people too. One of our goals at Food Revolution Network is to help you discover how you can bring friends and family along with you on a healthy eating path, and how you can build a new community of healthy eating allies.
Because when you have a strong community behind you, it gets easier and easier to do the right thing.
You'll find that most real friends want the best for you and want you to be healthy. When you know how to communicate artfully, you might be surprised by how many friends are inspired to join you. And you'll also find that your healthy eating choices can be a doorway to new friendships, deeper bonding, and stronger social ties. As you begin to benefit from shifting in healthy directions, you can pass your discoveries on to others. There are few things more rewarding than being a positive influence on people that you love and helping them to lose weight, to heal from illness, or to achieve their goals.
Okay, so suppose somebody really wants to change what's on their plate. How should they proceed? Should they make gradual changes over time, or would it be better to just chuck all the foods that are harmful out of their kitchen and out of their lives?
I know you're not a doctor, but what's your prescription? What's your recommendation for people who are just starting out on this journey? Do you say, okay, go cold turkey tomorrow? What do they do? What do they not do?
I mean, so here it is, right? I mean, I am very much an all in or all out, just jump in the deep end, pinch your nose, sink or swim. More often than not, you're going to find that you can swim. That's my philosophy. Other people like to gradually, taper off. But if we're talking about going back to food addiction, if we're talking about tapering off, there are studies that show that people who go cold turkey tend to have longer term success. That's what has worked for me. So I say go cold turkey, and it's not going to be easy. I never tell anybody it's going to be easy, and there are going to be cravings, and they are going to be intense, and you are going to wish that you were anybody or anywhere else. But what works to this day, and believe it or not, here we are 14, 15 years into my journey, I still get intense cravings. The old big, 420-pound brain kicks in. Just giving yourself permission to be uncomfortable and accept the fact that you're having those cravings makes it so much more easier to deal with. You're not a freak. You're not the only person in the world who is having these intense cravings. There's nothing wrong with you. As a matter of fact, the fact that you're having this craving means that you are perfectly normal. So don't beat yourself up. Just give yourself permission to be in that moment, be with those unhappy, unhealthy, just agonizing cravings. And when I'm talking to my guy friends, I'm like, guys, this is what we're going to call it. Accept the suck. Accept that right now, your life sucks For these 15 minutes when that craving hits, your life is going to suck. You're going to wish that you're anywhere else, but the craving's going to pass and then life's going to be grand again.
I thought I was going to die. I didn't. I survived and I thrived. And no matter how desperate you are today, no matter how far removed you think you are from your success, I guarantee you can achieve it. You just need to make up your mind to do it. It's that easy.
What is it like for you now to be in a more right-sized body? How does that feel, having been where you've been, to be here now?
Every morning I wake up and it's kind of like, is this life? You know, is it life that I can go into my closet and I can find obnoxious, bright pink suits like this and I can buy them off the rack and I just love it. And like, it's just kind of how life is supposed to be. And because I feel comfortable in my body now, it's given me confidence to do all kinds of amazing things that I never thought were possible. And it's so much more than just a weight loss journey. It's so much more than just a health journey. Now it's just life's journey. And that's the most epic journey of all. So it is fantastic. And I tell everybody, come on in. The water's fine. The water's fine. Just get here.
Beautiful. And so for anybody who's struggling with weight and thinks there's no hope,
There's always hope.
There's always hope.
If you're drawing breath, there's always hope. You don't have to put it off to tomorrow. Start today. Everybody's like, well, I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to start next week. And then you find an excuse why not to start next week. And I'm going to start tomorrow. No, start now. Just start now.
So many people know they should eat better, right? I mean, we all know we need to eat more vegetables.
Yes.
We need to eat less sugar and processed junk.
Right.
But for a lot of people, the problem isn't knowing what
It's
to do.
the
It's
doing.
doing
I
what
know.
they know. So how do you help people cross that
boy,
bridge?
That's the thing, I think of that saying, motivation, it can only last so long. It's just like bathing. You have to do it every day. And so again, that really is going to come down to their why, the why that makes them cry. Because knowing what to do and doing it, like you say, are two different things. I think a lot of times, though, for people, if they have habits in place that they can repeat easily day after day, it doesn't become a chore. So, for example, one of the things I teach people right away is this idea of batch cooking. Because for most people, if healthy food is readily available, they will eat it rather than get in the car and drive and get some junk food. So if you can learn a few things, like finding a few recipes that you and your family love, making them, but batch cooking them, that's an example of a habit. So on days that you don't feel like eating healthy, well, the food is ready. So you might just do that. So in exercise, the same thing. It's just about building habits and being able to repeat them. And nobody's going to be perfect, but it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
That phrase, progress, not perfection, it comes from the 12-step programs that have been created to help people deal with addictions. And it is so apt when it comes to food, considering that the junk food companies have literally designed their foods to be addictive.
The modern food environment is basically a recipe for type 2 diabetes. And this is the primary reason that the prevalence of this disease has increased 12-fold since processed food first really became a thing in the 1950s.
So today, literally half of US adults and more than 1 billion people worldwide have diabetes or prediabetes. And every one of those people with diabetes has to wonder, what will this mean for their future? Will they be on medications, or worse yet, insulin injections for the rest of their lives? Will they end up on dialysis? Will it take their lives?
Fortunately, when people with diabetes are willing to change the food on their plates, a very different outcome becomes possible.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jeanette Black, and this is my food revolution story. It started as a little girl growing up in Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in a family where we were pretty much not, we weren't rich. And so we ate more of the traditional types of foods as far as a Southern family, including salt, pork, chicken and all the things that goes with that. And I ate that as a little girl. And as time went on, many years passed, I developed diabetes. I developed diabetes thinking, oh, my mom had it, my dad had it, my aunt had it. So of course I'm going to get it. So I'll just have to deal with that. And as I started experiencing that, I asked my nurse, what could I do? What kind of things can I do to be more healthy? Because I thought my life was just going to be managing meds and just dealing with that. But as I found out, I can do some things about this. And so I started, one day at a time doing that. So I developed a way of cooking that makes me feel more healthy, learning how to cook healthy, how to utilize all the vegetables, fruits, things of that nature. And I feel so much better. I have more energy now. I have been able to lose 27 pounds. My A1C is now 6.6. It was up to like 10. And that's just amazing because I didn't think that was even possible. But with the advent of using food to be able to use it as like medicine, literally, instead of using actual meds, I was able to do that and able to sustain and maintain that over this past year. And I really want to be able to share this with other people because it absolutely can happen. Absolutely can happen. If you take care of yourself and stay focused and committed to your health. Now that I've reversed my diabetes, I can look forward to years of spending time with my family, traveling, which has always been one of the things that I love to do, and also staying active. I'm now doing jazzercise every day, and I feel wonderful. And some of the 30-year-olds are looking like, are you really? Are you doing that? And they've always said that, you know what, you bring sunshine to the room now. We can just see that glow from your life change. So I really am the happiest I've ever been. And I owe it all to my journey that I've had with food and with looking at my health.
I think the greatest blessing of shedding any excess weight and of reversing chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes isn't just that you're likely to live longer. It's also that you're likely to feel better and to live more happily. You'll be giving up the temporary pleasure that comes from processed foods and a saturated, fat-heavy diet, but you'll be saying yes to more vitality, more pleasure, and more joy.
And that is why we're here, to help you make food the foundation of your health so that you can truly live your best and most authentic life.
Yes. Even with all that's known about food and health, there are still a lot of people who are confused. And there are vitamins and minerals that could be hard to find on a plant-based diet. Should you take any supplements? What are humans best equipped to eat from an evolutionary biology perspective?
In the next episode, we're going to look at the science of nutrition. We'll be aiming to clear up confusion and bring you clarity.
We'll see you there. Let's do this. At Food Revolution Network, we're on a mission for healthy, ethical, sustainable food for everyone who eats. We believe that no matter where you come from or what you've been through, the simple truth is you are meant to thrive. The Food Revolution Summit is packed with so many insights that it can be difficult to absorb and apply all of them. That is why we created the Empowerment Package, which includes the entire summit, plus all the transcripts and loads of bonus material that you can refer back to as often as you like for life. We have a mission. We want an end to routine use of antibiotics in factory farms. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school, and we want doctors to learn about nutrition in medical school. We want to slash rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and obesity, and to uplift the health of millions. When you purchase the Empowerment Package, you are supporting your health and this mission. And for each package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, enabling them to plant an organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Invest in your health and the health of those you care about most, and help us change the status quo by purchasing your Empowerment Package today.
Thank you so much for sharing in that powerful episode. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, please continue posting and engaging in the comment section on our broadcast page. Make sure you refresh the comments using the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Lil said, progress, not perfection. That's me. I've been doing exceptionally well with my eating, yet still have glucose level of 106. Need to keep making progress. It's so true, Lil. Thank you for anchoring that in. Some people make big changes and go cold turkey and get incredible results. Other people, it takes time. At the end of the day, it isn't your aspirations or your willpower that shapes your destiny. It's mainly your habits. And it is willpower that helps you to choose habits, shape habits, and then potentially bring yourself back into alignment with them when you slip. But one step at a time, you keep making progress. You know, you can change direction, see a new vision for your life, see a new landscape before you, but it's the steps you take day in and day out that actually get you to a new destination. That's the progress. Thank you for being on the journey. We're sending you love every step of the way. Gentleman said, I've been attending the Food Revolution broadcast for 9 or 10 years now. Each year I find myself re-energized and recommitted to a whole food plant-based lifestyle. I live with a very minimal support network, except for this one. I'm lucky my husband is willing and supportive to eat anything I cook. He does struggle with beets and Brussels sprouts, even though I love them. I couldn't do this without your support, Ocean and John. I've often wished I could meet you both and tell you in person how you have helped me. I will admit that sugar is a bit of a problem for me still, but I'm trying to use more dates in my cooking and just snacking on them along with pecans. I find one date and one pecan to be my best candy replacement. I'm also going to try more recipes with Nooch, that's nutritional yeast. So thank you for your encouragement. A little bit goes a long way. Thanks for all the hard work in putting this together. You are changing people's lives. Well, Janellen, thank you so much for reaching out, or maybe it's Janellen. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, but it is good to meet you here in this way, and I'm so grateful that you are diving in and making use of what you're learning with us. I'm sorry that you feel at times rather alone and unsupported in the journey. I hope you can feel the community of folks in this summit. We're all with you, backing you. And if you do decide to join Whole Life Club, which is FRN's ongoing membership community, I think one of the powerful things you will find there is a resource of support, peers, allies in the journey. The community that builds in there is really, really palpable and sweet and beautiful. And this is where we're seeing some of the deepest transformations. If you haven't already gotten an empowerment package, anybody who gets one, you get an opportunity to upgrade to add a free 30-day trial of Whole Life Club. Most folks stick with it for long term after that because they find it so powerful and so supportive. So that's a resource you may want to consider. Carol said, Ocean, thanks so much. I credit you and your dad for my Whole Foods plant-based life. Wondering how to help anxiety and depression. Well, Carol, thanks for asking about this. We covered a lot about this in episode 2, which was a few days ago. If you get the empowerment package, you can watch it anytime you like. And there's also deeper dive interviews, especially I would recommend the one with Dr. Uma Naidu. She is a nutritional psychiatrist. If you get the empowerment package, you'll have all that. But we also have an article on our site called Good Food Equals Good Mood is what it says. The Nutrition and Mental Health Connection. So if you go to foodrevolution.org and just type in mood, you'll find it. And that could be helpful as well. Kate said, just wanted to send a heartfelt thanks for this amazing event. It truly is life-changing. Thank you for your generosity, sharing such vital information. Love from Switzerland. Kate, thank you. Love back to Switzerland and to you. And we're so glad you're here in this journey with us. And we love sharing this. And I'm so glad we do it because people like you learn from it and engage with it and participate and then spread the word to the people in your life. Alma said, I'm new to the Food Revolution docuseries. I knew I would love this series so much that I purchased the empowerment package before the episodes started. I am pre-diabetic, but I have the opposite issue of most people in that it's easy for me to lose weight, but I struggle to gain and maintain it. I am allergic to nuts, dairy, and wheat, and unable to get protein from those sources. I eat a healthy diet of organic and whole foods, but I only seem to maintain weight by including animal protein in my diet, mostly chicken, turkey, and fish. I periodically try to be plant-based, but I lose too much weight, which leads to other medical issues. Since this series started, I've tried once again on a plant-based diet, but unfortunately I've lost 2 pounds since episode 1. Do you have any suggestions for me? Well, Alma, thank you for asking. And it's true, a lot of people are struggling with excess weight, but some people want to gain weight like you. Now, the biggest reason folks end up underweight is literally not eating enough calories. For hundreds of millions of people, just accessing enough calories to survive is a daily struggle. For those of us who have enough total food, we still have to make choices, and there can still be issues. If you are looking to gain weight, some of the top strategies might include strength training, especially with your upper body. You want to gain muscle, not just fat. So that's big here, and I want to make sure that's emphasized. Especially a lot of folks, as we get older, muscle mass goes down, and that can be a major driver of weight loss. So keeping that muscle mass up, the best way to do so is use it so you don't lose it, and hopefully you gain more of it. Some people find that taking creatine can be helpful, particularly for muscle gain and also bone strength in later years. Plant-based eaters in particular. We wrote an article about this recently. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type in creatine, you'll find out more. There's a lot of research showing benefits, and muscle strength gaining and is one of the biggest. Getting enough sleep and rest time turns out to be a big deal. A lot of people who don't sleep enough are kind of burning the candle at both ends. They're burning more calories all the time. Sleep turns out to be a critical time for your body to rest, replenish, and actually it's beneficial for right-sized weight in both directions. Make sure if you're wanting to gain weight that you eat a solid 3 meals every day, including never missing having a good breakfast and adding in some snacks. And I know you mentioned you can't do nuts. Those would be one of the top recommendations, is to get in nuts for weight gain, but you can also maybe eat seeds. You didn't mention being allergic to them. So hemp seeds are fantastic, sunflower seeds, chia seeds and flax seeds, but pumpkin seeds, some of these can be roasted with a little seasoning, and they can be fabulous in that way. You could make flax crackers if you soak flax seeds and then grind them up just a bit, and then you get a dehydrator, or you can also make them in an oven. You'll find some great recipes probably on our website and elsewhere for that. Avocados could be your friend. Beans and other legumes can be your friend. Starchy vegetables, soy foods could be helpful. So those are some ideas. One little hack is soy milk, like Eden Soy Unsweetened, which has 12 grams of protein per cup. It's just organic soybeans and water. You could drink that and other beverages that include calories instead of just drinking straight water. You could also choose to start a food diary and spend a week tracking your caloric intake. You might want to be sure you're getting at least 2,500 calories per day if you're trying to gain weight. And I'll circle back and say again, strength training is fabulous because you want to add muscle weight, not just fat, to your body for optimal health. Lydia said, I've been struggling with binge eating disorder my entire life. Even after all I've learned here the past few days, I succumbed to stress eating an entire pizza last night. Lost both parents the past few years, and I'm only 40. It's been really hard. I've been able to quit opioids, alcohol, and cannabis without a problem. Feeling so down about myself right now. Looking forward to today's topic more than ever. Thank you, John and Ocean, for the hope I will inevitably feel after today's broadcast. Lydia, thank you so much for sharing, and so sorry you lost your parents and that you've been struggling. And by the way, congratulations on getting off of opioids, alcohol, and cannabis. Big deals there, so huge kudos to you on that. And I'm sorry that you're struggling with this so much. I know you probably already know a lot about binge eating disorders, but just in case any of this is helpful, We know that therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, has been shown to be highly effective by helping people to identify and change patterns of thought and behavior that trigger binge eating episodes. Developing mindfulness and intuitive eating practices can also be helpful for tuning into your body's hunger and fullness signals and reducing the urge to overeat. Regular and balanced meals that include plenty of whole plant foods can stabilize your blood sugar levels and reduce cravings. And of course, support from healthcare providers and peer groups may also play a role. Above all, though, self-compassion is key with BED because it helps break the cycles of guilt and shame that often fuel binges and purges. So we're sending you loads of compassion and a reminder that now is a wonderful time to get back on the wagon, as it were, and know you deserve a healthy body and a healthy relationship with food. So we're just sending you lots and lots of love and compassion and support in the journey. Roberta said, how about olive oil? Is it okay? A lot of folks have been asking about olive oil, and I'll also add avocado oil to the mix because they have a very similar nutritional profile. So in general, a lot of the experts we interview for this summit will promote a whole foods as well as plant-based approach. Olive oil and avocado oil, really any bottled oil, are somewhat refined products that have lost the fiber and other beneficial nutrients found in olives and avocados and other whole foods. That said, as oils go, olive oil and avocado oil both have a much more favorable profile nutritionally than a lot of the other vegetable oils. So one of the big concerns with vegetable oils is that they can be very high in omega-6 fatty acids, which tend to be pro-inflammatory. And you want a balance of omega-3s to omega-6s. Most of us are getting 16 or 20 omega-6s for every one omega-3 in our diets. And you want it to be closer to 3 to 1 probably, more or less. So bringing down the omega-6s and up the omega-3s helps create a healthier balance, which brings down inflammation in the body. And also, by the way, when omega-6s are a bit lower, it seems that we're better able to convert the ALA, short-chain fatty acids in omega-3s, into the long-chain fatty acids, EPA and DHA, that are found in omega-3s. So that's one factor. Olive and avocado oil are both very low in both. Flax oil and camelina oil, an oil most folks have not heard of, are somewhat much higher in omega-3s than omega-6s, so they help balance the thing in the other direction. You don't want to cook with flax or camelina oil because they don't respond well to heat. The omega-3s get degraded. But olive and avocado oil do work for cooking. And in general, what I'm going to say is they're probably not a super healthy food, but in research, when people consume olive or avocado oil, they tend to have better health outcomes. Cholesterol levels come down, life expectancy goes up. This may be because they're using them instead of other oils that are less favorable. We don't entirely know. Research has shown that people who are eating a whole foods plant-based diet and add more olive oil to their diet do not necessarily have beneficial health outcomes compared to not adding the olive oil. So there's that. But don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. If you're going to consume oil, these are probably the best ones, and there is some data out there saying they can actually be a net positive, especially for people on the standard American diet. So that's what we know, and in our family, we do use some olive oil, as well as some flax oil, as well as some camelina oil, and mainly we lean into olive extra virgin primarily. There is an article about all this on our website. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type in olive oil, you'll find it, including some links to some verified, legitimate sources of it if you choose to go that route. Humanshu said, please clarify the inclusion of coconut oil. Speakers yesterday and today are presenting seemingly conflicting information. Well, Humanshu, thank you for asking. Coconut oil is one of the more controversial foods of our day. Some people will say it's a menace. They point out that coconut oil is the most concentrated source of saturated fat in the human food supply, more highly saturated than lard or butter. They say coconut oil raises your LDL or bad cholesterol, that it clogs your arteries with plaque and increases your risk of heart disease. The American Heart Association officially advises against the use of coconut oil. On the other hand, coconut oil advocates tell us that it's been found to promote weight loss. that it can help to fight Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia because it's so high in medium chain triglycerides, which have brain health benefits, they say, that it helps fight even diabetes and digestive disturbances. And the controversy can get intense. You won't find complete agreement even among the speakers in this summit. I think this is one of those cases where there's not a one-size-fits-all answer, and you do need to listen to your body and observe how you respond to coconut oil if you use it. I'll say that in those parts of the world where coconut has been a principal source of dietary fat and a key part of people's diets, rates of chronic disease, including coronary artery disease, have often been low. But keep in mind that these folks are eating whole coconut, not necessarily coconut oil. Many of the compounds in coconut and coconut products that may lead to its health benefits, including its flavonoids, its antioxidants and sterols and stanols, and its phytochemicals, are significantly reduced, if not completely eliminated, in the manufacture of coconut oil. So eating coconut butter or coconut cream or coconut milk, when they are made from whole foods, can provide a bunch of ingredients not found in pure coconut oil. That said, coconut milk can be anything from taking a whole coconut and blending it up to products that are a lot more refined. My take overall is that coconut products, including mature coconut meat and young coconut meat and coconut milk and coconut cream and coconut water, can be a part of a healthy diet in moderation. But for many people, it's best to avoid them altogether, particularly if cardiovascular disease is a concern. There is a strong correlation between coconut product consumption and elevated LDL cholesterol levels. I know a lot of folks who have been whole foods plant-based eaters and their LDL levels were still too high, and then they went ahead and reduced their consumption of coconut altogether, and they came way, way, way back down. So those are some resources that may be helpful to you, and ultimately you're going to have to decide what feels best in your body. So many wonderful comments and responses coming in here today, and we're so grateful. Love hearing from all of you. Thank you everybody who's chiming in with your thoughts on everything about this summit. We heard from, just finding the next comment here, from Amir, who said, can you please comment on carbohydrate levels in legumes with regard to blood sugar levels? My doc suggested I not eat them because of the carb content. Well, Amir, it sounds to me like you may want to consider getting a new doctor, at least with regards to nutritional advice. I don't know what your doctor's thinking, but studies have repeatedly found that eating legumes can help prevent and manage type 2 diabetes. There was a study of more than 3,000 participants which found that people who ate more legumes had a 35% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Another study of 121 people who had type 2 diabetes found that when they ate a diet that included more legumes, they had lower A1C levels as well as lower total cholesterol and triglyceride levels. The data here is pretty overwhelming. If you want to learn more about type 2 diabetes management or prevention, I strongly suggest you check out the masterclass that we put together that I host with dietitian Brenda Davis. You can join in it at type2.foodrevolution.org. That's type2.foodrevolution.org. One more time, that's type2.foodrevolution.org. And from there, there's a Tackling Type 2 course that Brenda and I put together that is really powerful for helping you address type 2 diabetes. Brenda has written many books on the topic. She's one of the world's top experts. She'll walk you through the journey. And we've had so many people tell us that this course has transformed their lives. Rowan has said, hi, Ocean and everyone else who are part of this summit. I'm currently undergoing chemotherapy for stage 4 cancer. I've embraced a lot of the protocols you're discussing. One question I have is, I make milk kefir. I make lacto ferments as well. I've been working on my microbiome, but I'm concerned. Does milk kefir do harm, or does the fermentation help make it okay? Also, am I correct in thinking that the chemo is messing with my microbiome? I'm continuing to try to keep it in good balance between doses, but think it may not be able to help until my treatment plan is completed. I plan to become more emphatic with how I live and eat after treatment while adopting as much as I can as I'm traveling this path. appreciate all that I've learned so far. Well, Rona, thank you so much for reaching out. We're wishing you every bit of success and strength and help in your journey with stage 4 cancer and hopefully becoming a cancer thriver. We're wishing you healing and recovery on every level. To address your questions, first of all, lacto ferments. Well, fermentation can be wonderful. The research on milk-based or cow milk-based yogurts is pretty positive overall, and kefirs as well, in terms of health benefits. That said, probably even better with plant milks. We don't have as much data. In our family, we make our homemade soy yogurts. We use Eden soy unsweetened. I'm sorry I keep talking about that, but I just think it's a really cool product. But it's the thickest one, and it's just organic soybeans and water. And we use that and ferment it in a homemade yogurt maker, and it's pretty awesome. We also make our own ferments as well. We use Inner Echo coconut water made. It's a kefir. It's very high in beneficial bacteria, and we add various things. And anyway, it's a complex recipe, but we have a lot of fun with that. Fermentation is awesome. Vegetables as well as water kefirs, as well as plant milk kefirs, or if cow milk kefir is beneficial for you, I wish you everything that will help you in this stage. But I would be concerned, yes, that the cow milk is not necessarily a net benefit, and you'd be better off perhaps experimenting with some plant milks. I'd encourage you to give that a try and see how that works for you. Because in general, cow milk, as we've learned in this summit, is a problematic substance for the planet, for the cows, but also for human bodies in a great many cases. As to your other question, yes, chemotherapy can and does disrupt the microbiome. It not only targets cancer cells, but also affects all the other rapidly dividing cells in the body, which includes beneficial bacteria in the gut. The microbiome can recover over time, and maintaining a healthy diet that's rich in fiber and probiotics and prebiotics during and after treatment can help support your gut health and foster recovery of beneficial bacteria. So yes, it's true. It's going to be hard to get anything near optimal while you're undergoing the treatment, but you should do the best you can. It's critically important to the success of the treatment and your body's health and wellness to optimize your microbiome along the way, and then also afterwards as well. I hope that's helpful, and again, we're sending you so much love every step of the journey. James said, I live in a retirement group lodging which employs a cook who decides what we eat. I want to educate them, but find that they treat the ideas of plant-based diet as rubbish. They all think they know best. Many of the residents just jeer at me. Residents are not allowed to use the kitchen. It's very frustrating. I can only employ what I have learned from the summit when I eat alone in my room or eat in vegetarian cafes. I wish I could show them the whole food revolution. Thank you for making it public. I'll try to get them all watching next time it comes around. James, sorry you're dealing with this frustration. We're wanting to support you. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package so you won't have to wait until next time it comes around. Our team will be in touch with you. Congratulations. And I don't know how many folks in the retirement group you're part of will want to watch it, or if you can get the chef to watch it, but maybe it's worth a try. You can offer, right? They say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. In this case, I guess the horse is the one that's also feeding you, so that's a little more complicated, but you can do your best. Give the opportunity. So now you'll have it, and you can invite people to viewings and discussions about the topic, and who knows? Maybe you'll get some buy-in. Feel free to share with us what you learn and how it goes in the future. I can't wait to hear about it. And again, congratulations. You'll now have all the recordings and the transcripts for life, including the extended interviews and all the bonuses, so you can dig in and learn and grow and engage and hopefully find it of benefit. We're wishing you lots of love and lots of health and lots of success in your plant-based journey. And congratulations also to all of our newest Empowerment Package owners. Thank you all so much for investing in your health and for supporting our mission. Congratulations to Viola from New York, Tanisha from Virginia, Nicholas from California, Ralph from Oregon, Karen from Alaska, Nigel from Florida, Carmen from Massachusetts, Sue from United Kingdom, Mary from Norway, Elizabeth from Australia, and everybody else who's stepping up to own it all for life. We're so grateful to you for putting this to use, for absorbing it, as I know you will. And thank you for supporting us in spreading the word far and wide. Today, everybody, you get 3 more extended interviews. So if you want to go deeper into any of the topics that we've been discussing in this summit, the extended interviews are an incredible way to do so. Especially want to call out Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson. Today's extended interview with her is The Truth About Weight Loss, Escaping Diet Tyranny, and Finding Food Freedom. If anybody is wanting to lose excess weight or just to have a more authoring relationship to food, Susan Pierce Thompson is your go-to person. She also wrote the book, Bright Line Eating. It's an international bestseller, highly recommended for anybody dealing with weight loss issues and challenges. Also, the interview with Chuck Carroll is terrific. It's called Freedom from Obesity, Shedding Pounds and Reclaiming Life. And we also have William Lee, Dr. William Lee, on Eat to Beat Disease, the new science of how your body can heal itself. All of these will be available as soon as we finish the live broadcast throughout the replay period until we begin and flip the page for broadcasts tomorrow morning. And of course, with the empowerment package, you have all the extended interviews for life, which is pretty awesome. Also, every day of the summit, we have 3 more recipes of the day from FRN's lead dietitian and recipe developer, Nicole D'Andrea Russert. And for those who are not knowing yet, we wrote a book together, Powered by Plants, which comes out October 29th. You can pre-order your copy today at poweredbyplantsbook.com. And Nicole and I are so excited about this book. It includes 30-minute or less recipes that are super nutrient-packed. They're super delicious. And also guidance on how to optimize your diet and lifestyle to get all your critical nutrient needs met. So today's recipes of the day are tofu scrambled breakfast wrap. You can jumpstart your morning with this amazing wrap that's packed with protein-rich tofu, nutrient-rich spinach, and creamy avocado. It's the deliciously healthy kick you need to fuel your day. And if you're looking for a quick nutritious boost that keeps you going and your body thriving, this will do the trick. Next, we have samosa bites, which take snacking to a whole new level. These are made with potatoes and chickpeas and oats and a colorful mix of yellow squash, green onions, cilantro, and plenty of mouth-watering spices. They offer a new take on the traditional street food fare, and they're packed with protein and fiber and loaded with phytonutrients. And finally, we have green tahini sauce. This is a nutty and herby sauce with a hint of spice. It's blended with spinach, cilantro, jalapeno, garlic, and lime. And this vibrant tahini sauce is the perfect accompaniment to a huge variety of plant-powered meals. With endless possibilities for adding a burst of green goodness to your dishes, it's easy to embrace the freedom and the joy of a plant-based lifestyle when you use this incredible sauce. And by the way, the green tahini sauce is also our recipe demo of the day, so you can watch Nicole prepare it in her kitchen. Personally, I think that a good sauce is one of the keys to enjoying healthy eating, because when you have a good sauce, it makes everything better. It makes your grain bowls better. It makes your legumes better. You can put it in casseroles. You can have it on vegetables, and everything gets more yummy and delicious. We heard from Cheryl, who said, can soy cause hormone imbalance or higher levels of estrogen? Cheryl, thank you so much for asking. We'll address this some more tomorrow, but let me say really, really clearly now, soy does not cause hormone imbalances or raise estrogen levels for most people. Soy contains phytoestrogens, specifically isoflavones, which are plant compounds that can weakly mimic estrogen in the body. But it turns out these compounds have a balancing effect. They're sort of like the perfect Goldilocks to help your body get the right amounts. They can both mildly activate and also block estrogen receptors, largely in response to what your body needs. Research shows that moderate soy consumption does not increase estrogen levels or cause hormone imbalances in humans, but it does appear to have protective effects, like reducing the risk of hormone-related cancers, such as breast cancer. It also helps to bring down hot flashes in menopausal women. For most people, consuming soy as part of a balanced, whole foods, plant-based diet seems to be beneficial for hormonal health. And for those who are worried about man boobs and estrogenic effects in men, worry no more. There is no correlation in any study between men consuming soy products and so-called feminizing effects. Men are just as virile, just as vital, just as manly when they consume soy. So we can put those fears to rest. Now, we do recommend organic soy as much as possible because that is a great way to reduce your exposure to GMOs. A lot of our soy products today are genetically engineered. They are sprayed with glyphosate, and that is known endocrine disruptor and a probable carcinogen. So if you go organic, you steer clear of that, or you can also get non-GMO certified soy, which will also help you to steer clear of that. Mary said, this is the best documentary. Thank you to both of you being role models of how to eat healthily. You are constantly improving your filmmaking and presentation too. Bravo. Awesome, Mary. Thank you so much. We put a lot into this series, and I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. Deborah said, question, do we still get enough nutrients from powdered spices compared to whole spices? Well, Deborah, thanks for asking. Both are great. I mean, absolutely. Fresher and more whole are going to be optimal. In the ideal world, you're growing your nutmeg in your garden, you grab a nutmeg pod and you grind it up in your blender or chew it up and have it right away. But the truth is, we don't live an ideal world. We all get our food from lots of places. And the truth is, most of us prefer powdered to whole because it's easier, it's more convenient, and the best way to use a spice is the way that gets you to eat it. Even a powdered spice that's been sitting in the back of your spice cabinet for a year or two is probably still going to be great. Spices are fantastic for health because they're packed with antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, and other bioactive ingredients that support your overall well-being. A lot of spices like turmeric and ginger and cinnamon have been shown to reduce inflammation. They can help prevent chronic diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Others like garlic and cayenne pepper can boost your immune system and improve your circulation. Spices also enhance the flavor of food without adding extra sugar or salt, which makes it easier to stick to a healthy diet and enjoy it. Plus, incorporating a variety of spices into your meals adds diversity to your nutrient intake, and that can further support long-term health. So, hooray for healthy spices. All right, folks, we are now approaching the end of day 6 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. To express your opinions on what you're hearing and learning and find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comment section on our broadcast page. You can click the button down there to see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Come on back and join us tomorrow when we go live at 7:45 a.m. Pacific Time, 10:45 Eastern, 2:45 p.m. GMT, or at 11 a.m. Eastern when we start rolling episode 7, The Science of Nutrition, exploring comprehensive studies, hot controversies, and the critical nutrients you need. We will dive into the science, we'll look at the controversies, we'll look at the big studies, we'll explore, do some people need animal products or supplements to be healthy? What vitamins and minerals and other nutrients do we all need to pay attention to? Do we need meat to get enough protein? And what kinds of protein are best? Do we need fish to get enough omega-3 fatty acids? We're going to clear up confusion and get evidence-based answers to burning questions. In the meanwhile, post and engage in the comments section, join in the conversation, catch and share the replay right here on this page. As soon as I'm done live here, the video will automatically be available. And check out the empowerment package. You can also enjoy today's in-depth expert interviews and our recipes of the day, which you'll find right at the bottom of the broadcast page, and Nicole's recipe demo video. We're just wishing you such a wonderful, healthy, and thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 6 in the Food Revolution Summit. And now, here's a peek at what's coming up tomorrow. Do you ever wonder what the most extensive studies on food and health tell us? Do you contemplate if it's necessary for some individuals to have animal products or supplements in order to achieve optimal health? And what is the deal with protein?
Why do you need money when you retire? So I can live the life I want to live. I said, so why don't we do the same thing with our health? Why don't we invest in our health for our health future? That means by what we pour into it, by our choices, every single day of what we choose to eat, this is adding to our future. Because what good is the money if you can't live healthfully?
The dairy industry also has hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on public campaigns, like the infamous Got Milk campaign, the Milk Mustache. That was hundreds of millions of dollars. Plant-based foods don't have that kind of budget, and people may not realize that there is also calcium in almonds, oranges, and chickpeas.
I feel it's critically important to make sure the omega-3 index is optimized. Omega-3 protects the brain against inflammation and susceptibility to toxic chemical compounds.
If you're thinking about making a change, but you're not sure if it's worth it, imagine yourself feeling at home in your body. What would it look like to trust that your body's going to show up for you in the ways that it wants?
In this episode, we'll examine the evidence, clear up the confusion, and provide research-based answers to your burning questions about nutrition. We'll explore the essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients even the healthiest of eaters should prioritize. Let's do this. At Food Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, and sustainable food for everyone who eats. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the status quo. We're spreading the word and standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, enabling them to plant an organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and support this mission